It's Mr. Farrell coming to you from the playroom. I'm going to give you a few drum major conducting tips, and hopefully enough to get you started and well on your way as you submit your audition video. Okay? So first of all, let's talk about where to even start. Right here, below your sternum, but above your belly button, we have the center of our body. Okay? And this is going to create what we call the ictus, which is exactly what our horizontal plane is based on. Okay, this plane right here is called the horizontal plane, and this is our ictus. This is where our pattern hits. It's like a tabletop. Okay, so that's a really important thing to find where your ictus is. Now, there are a couple different schools of thought, and some people think that the ictus is a little higher, closer to the sternum, and some people like to conduct a little lower, a little closer to the belly button. I find that somewhere in between is really comfortable for me personally, and that just makes sense. But if you find that you're more comfortable, a little more lifted, then that's okay. Not everybody conducts the same way. We're all very different, so that is totally okay to find what you are comfortable with and sticking to that. Let me turn on the light real quick here. So we have our horizontal plane, which is where our ictus is, and I want you just to take a moment and practice hitting that tabletop. It's even helpful if you can create a tabletop, like a physical, real tabletop, to practice this and to feel where that ictus is. Before we even start the pattern, just feeling where that tabletop is and being as accurate as you can. It also helps if you videotape yourself and you can see, especially from the side, exactly where you're hitting every time. And you know, when you first start, you may be a little inconsistent. You may hit here and then hit here and kind of find your way. But in general, we want to create this nice line here, not like blade hand, but this nice line from our elbow to our fingertip, and that's where our ictus is going to hit. That's where our clarity really comes from. Okay, which is one of the most important things in conducting. But I don't want to get into philosophy right now. The next thing, of course, is your vertical plane. Your vertical plane is right here. Now, from the side view, I want to show you what I'm doing, and the window helps me a lot because you can see my hands really clearly, but I want to stay right up and down completely vertically just to demonstrate what the vertical plane is. Now, that does not mean that we have to conduct in this vertical plane line. We can totally leave the vertical plane line a little bit with the bending of the elbow. But we want to find a good balance. When we bend the elbow, we end up showing some of our palm. Some is okay. I like to not ever, as far as drum major conducting, show the palm. That's not a preference that I have. But that also means that sometimes, I'm trying to give you this side view here, that you may need to adjust the angle of your hand as you go up to make sure that you're not showing palms. Watch, if I don't adjust, then I just end up showing palms. And I don't personally like this look for a drum major. Okay. The other thing is, before we move any further here, the extent of your arm to create the vertical plane is also a preference. It's a school of thought, and I know a lot of teachers that will teach in a more extended arm, and then the vertical plane obviously would be a little further out for those people. You can see how that looks a little different if I have an extended arm versus more elbow to side, relaxed arm. This is a little bit of preference. I would encourage you to find a good balance point. What we don't want is we don't want the elbows coming back in any way. Okay, this creates unneeded tension and pull right here in the shoulders, and shoulder pain and tension is one of the leading things we want to avoid in any conducting genre at all. Okay, so we want to keep these elbows at least here, which is creating a vertical line from my shoulder to my elbow, or you can extend out and find a good balance. Obviously, this is too far. This is probably still too far. So somewhere from here to here, wherever is comfortable to you, is going to probably be okay. You may want to experiment. This is not going to be comfortable at first, but you may like the way it looks. And if you like the way it looks, it's okay to experiment and get more comfortable with that to conduct that way. There's been plenty of times where I changed my habits based on what I wanted to look like, and then I had to make that habit comfortable. Okay? Anyway, so we have 2 planes so far. We have horizontal, we have vertical, and then I already touched on it a little bit, but we also have what's called the sagittal plane, and that's your forward to back. We can leave the vertical plane, and we can come forward, we can come back, based on what we want to do. Now, generally, we want to use the sagittal plane when it comes to things like dynamics, when it comes to things like cueing, or anything that has an emphasis that we want to create a little bit more interest. If we want to really pull back and get smaller and also closer to the body, this is more intimate. This is a little bit obviously softer, but you can still create a lot of intensity right here. Or if we want to be really big, we can put our arms out and create this really big box, right, that we're conducting in. And even though we're still in the box, we can really expand all the way to the corners of the box, okay? That looks like this from the side. So here's like a normal conducting pattern. This is an arrow pattern, but I'll get to that in a second. We can bring it in, or we can bring it out. You can see I'm extending almost every beat to create a big 3-dimensional box, okay? So, 3 planes, horizontal, vertical, and sagittal. And good conducting is going to use all 3 of those planes. Of course, the one that we forget about most is the sagittal plane. But that's going to be your higher level conducting. If you can get comfortable using the sagittal plane, you're going to be a more effective conductor, and you're going to be able to command a little bit more attention from the podium. Okay, now, the most important thing about being a drum major is clarity. And the reason why it's so different than conducting on a podium for a wind band is because when I'm conducting on the podium for a wind band, I am at most maybe 20 or so feet, maybe a little more, away from the furthest member. Whereas when you're on the podium, even though you have height to help, you could be 50 yards from, or maybe further, from the furthest individual on the field. So clarity is absolutely the most important thing about conducting on the field. Okay. Now the reason, because of that, the most popular pattern in most conducting on the field is arrow pattern. It is very concise, it's easy to teach, and it's very clear. And so I'm going to start there instead of starting with our basic pattern, our more traditional pattern. So our arrow pattern is exactly as you would expect. It is an arrow, straight up and down, in, out, up. And every time that my hand meets the ictus, my horizontal plane, it is in the exact same place, okay? Not just up and down, but also left and right, horizontally and vertically. I'm going to show you that, okay? So I'm going to move this to the middle here. I'm going to pretend like this is my conducting hand, okay? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to notice that I'm coming up to my forehead for the prep for 1. This isn't 1, it's the prep for 1. So it's 1, only about halfway up for the and, 2, 3, 4, big prep, and 1. Why do we want a bigger prep on 1? Because it's the downbeat, because that's what people are going to look for when you're trying to provide clarity, okay? So now what that looks like with both hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Turn to the side so you can see it from the side. Try to line it up here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I hope that you can see that I'm making a bigger difference with all the 1 preps than I am with everything else. That's called the rebound. It's how high we come after we hit the ictus. We want the rebounds to be comfortable. We don't want the rebounds to feel like they're stuck in any way, okay? A good rebound is going to be a pretty natural rebound, and that takes practice. I know just because the word is natural doesn't mean that it comes naturally, but it looks natural, and after you get comfortable, it is pretty natural, okay? I also want to talk about the hand shape before I go any further here. Notice that, like I said earlier, we are not blade hand. This is not a good look. I'll show you. It's not what we're looking for, right? From the side, it's even worse because you don't really see a lot of the hand, and especially if, I mean, imagine if the sun gets through, you almost can't see the hand at all. So we want a natural curve to the hand. I'm gonna get really close here. A natural curve is a good thing. Also, the spacing between the fingers. We don't want this. We don't want claw. We want something in between, okay? Now, they shouldn't be very far apart. They should be still pretty close. But touching is probably not good, so we want a natural curve and a relaxed nature to the hand. It's okay that your hand moves when you conduct. It's okay to add a little flick on the downbeat to emphasize the ictus. That doesn't always have to be used. Some people use that every beat, and some people don't. Some people use it when they really need to. When you're conducting small, it's really nice because you don't have to work so hard to create the ictus. Otherwise, I have to get a little bit more arm involved, okay? And when you're tired, you don't want to use the shoulder. You want to use the elbow, right? This is way less energy than it is for me to move my entire arm. Then you go home and you have to put ice on your shoulders, okay? So, almost finished wrapping up here. I want to talk more about the arrow pattern before I move on to the basic pattern. And also remember, just good posture, chin up, shoulders back, all those good things, okay? So I'm going to show you one more time. Relaxed hands. My fingers aren't too close. They're not too far apart. They're not claws. All right? This is still arrow pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, I want to talk one more thing about my elbow, okay? As I come in, it is okay for the elbow to come in. As I go out, it is okay for the elbow to come out. A little. You don't want to go out as far or further than the hand. That's a little awkward, okay? That's a weird look, right? Imagine, this is, I don't know, I feel really weird, like those inflatable things at the car dealership, okay? You don't want to create that, but you want a natural motion, and for it to look natural, I do think the elbow has to move a little bit. Here's what it looks like if I lock my elbows down. It's a little awkward, especially on 3, because I get to this position, and this isn't very strong. So if I just allow my elbows to come out, it's a lot stronger, a lot more natural. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to discuss is the traditional pattern or the basic pattern. And the basic pattern is going to be a little bit more difficult because the ictus is going to change on the horizontal plane, not on the vertical plane. It's always going to be right here, but it's not going to be in the same place vertically. Okay? It's going to move. So I hope that makes sense, but I'll show you. So we have 1, same, 1. Nothing is different so far. But for 2, we're going to come in. 2. This is our downbeat. Now we've moved in for our beat 2. Then we're going to go out pretty far, beat 3. Round just a little bit, not like a circle, but just a little bit of curve. Come back in, 4, 1. So 4 and 1 are both in the same place. 2 is here, 4 is here. 2 is here, 3 is here, 4, 1 is the exact same as the arrow pattern. Okay? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'll show you from the side. Not a lot different from the side, but I still want you to see that, especially with the light here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're done. Okay. Now, I prefer to use the basic pattern when you're doing anything that is mid to slow tempo, that is a little bit more lyrical, because you're able to show a little bit more lyrical pattern with that. But if you're high tempo, very fast, or you're playing staccato, accented music, then you probably want to stick to arrow pattern, okay? And you want to use both. You want to be able and comfortable to go in and out of both whenever you feel it's necessary. So you may feel like you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, whenever you need. Again, good conducting is a kind of a mastery of all of these things so that you're comfortable and you have the skills to be able to move in and out when you need to. One more thing. When you're conducting and you want to make it more lyrical, I'm going to use the basic or the traditional pattern, then you want to make sure that you kind of round your edges a little bit more so we don't have as intense of a flick on the downbeat, okay? Now, I want you to be careful about this, especially as a drum major. You don't want to go too far in the lyrical realm, because your number one goal is still clarity. And even if the band is supposed to be playing the most beautiful, luscious, lyrical line, you may still want to make it clear with an arrow pattern, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can also make the arrow pattern more lyrical. This is a little bit more lyrical. It's harder to make it lyrical because it's still focused on clarity, but that's not a weakness. That's a strength of the arrow pattern, okay? Now, obviously, this is more lyrical. You can see I'm allowed to kind of flow a little bit more, but, you know, we're blurring the lines between lyrical and, well, we're blurring the lines between musicality and clarity. And again, we want to focus drum major, podium, on clarity, not musicality necessarily, okay? Last thing I'm going to talk about is cueing. Cueing is obviously a very important thing. We want to make sure that as we lead through conducting, that we're giving attention to the people who need the attention the most in each moment. It's not just about keeping the beat. It is absolutely, that's the most basic level, yes, but we have to go beyond that. So I'm going to give you a couple of cue ideas. The most easy cue that you can make is just to direct your body in that direction. Now, obviously, you might not know where these people are on the field right now, but you could just take a guess. It's pretty clear that if I'm conducting and I go like this, that I'm obviously doing something to the people over here. I'm trying to direct something to them. So I'm going to show you one more time. It's just a nice little turn of the body. Excuse me, I'll do arrow pattern. Nice little turn of the body. I didn't do anything different but turn my body, facial expression, eye contact. 1, 2, I bring it back in, and I'm back to the full band. That is the easiest and very effective cue. You don't need to do more than that in a lot of circumstances. Okay. Another cue may be what I call the tap on the head. And you just imagine a small child in front of you, and you just gentle tap on the head. This does require some independency with your right and left hand. Okay, and you want to use your left hand. And I know you're watching me and you're saying that this is, you might perceive that this is my right. This is my left hand, okay, just to make sure here. So I'm using my left hand, 2, 3, 4, and 1. 2, 3, 4, and 1. 2, 3, 4. That's a very effective cue, especially for anything mid-tempo and low. It's a little awkward if I'm doing it really quickly. It could work, but maybe not the most effective cue. You might just want to use a body cue. Those are the only 2 cues I'm going to give you guys right now because I want you to be comfortable with what I give you. Now, I want you to practice cueing on different beats because that's one of the most difficult things to do. Okay? Cueing on 1, after you get pretty comfortable with it, is not very difficult. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But what about 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Notice I didn't miss a beat. My right hand still came in for 2. That's a really important thing to practice. Here's 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so those are important things for you to have some independency with your right and left hand and be able to cue when you feel like you need to. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. Go over everything. Horizontal plane, sorry, that was vertical. Horizontal plane, ictus, right here on the horizontal plane, vertical plane, sagittal plane. You want relaxed arms, you can bring these out a little bit, find the comfort spot for you. Same thing with the horizontal plane, you want to find the comfortable spot between your sternum and your belly button and create this tabletop. Hands relaxed, and you're focused on more than anything else, clarity. We talked about arrow pattern, and we talked about traditional or basic pattern. And I would love to see you guys use both of those in your audition videos. Beyond this, I don't really want to give you guys a lot more because what we're looking for is we're looking for clarity and comfort. I wouldn't try to do anything crazy in your audition video because we're not looking for anything crazy. We're looking for clarity and in comfort. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions, and we're looking forward to seeing your videos soon.